We are going to be covering the Tofflemire and matrix band today and how to put those together. So first and foremost, this top thing is a Tofflemire. Then we have a size 2 extended matrix band and a size 1 standard matrix band. The difference between these two are these extensions on the gingival edge or gingival aspect of the matrix band. The size 2 has these extensions and the size 1 does not. The size 1 is a standard size matrix band which you will use most of the time for most patient care situations. However, for our typodont, because our typodont does not have a sulcus and the gingiva is so flaccid in the typodont, if we were to use a size 1 matrix band, there is no sulcus, as I mentioned, to stop the matrix band from sliding down too low, too far into the gingiva, and the occlusal aspect of the matrix band will not be high enough to make our filling properly. So we're going to actually, for most cases in our Kilgore typodont, we're going to be using the size 2 with the extensions on it, only because of the typodont situation, not because that is the normal matrix band to use. Most of the time you will be using a size 1 matrix band in patient care situations. So I'm going to remove this type 1 matrix band out of our way. We're going to do everything with our size 2 since that's what you will be familiar with. You can see I've already kind of started a little bit here. All right, so I have my Tofflemire, and as I mentioned, I have the concave area here of the matrix band. I'm going to flatten this out a little bit for you so you can see that a little bit better. You can see that the bottom part of this matrix band is concave. That's the gingival aspect. And the top part of this matrix band is convex, and that is the occlusal aspect of this matrix band. We have the same situation on our Tofflemire looking at the retainer head. This is a Tofflemire retainer. And so it's going to retain the matrix band. That's why it's called a retainer. And this retainer head right here looks like a N in this case with no stem here on the end. But it looks like an N. And the legs, or the concave area, however you prefer to think about it, is the gingival aspect. And this convex curved part is the occlusal aspect. So we have our gingival concave aspect, and we have our convex occlusal aspect. I hope I said that correctly. So concave gingival aspect, convex occlusal aspect. And it's the same for our matrix band. Convex, the top is our occlusal, concave is gingival. So I have them both positioned the exact same way. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to curl my matrix band around. I don't want to fold it. I don't want to cause a crease right here. I'm going to make sure that my ends are meeting. I'm going to slip these ends into my diagonal slot vise, which is this box looking area of the Tofflemire. And I had already backed out my spindle, which is the screw, from the diagonal slot vise so that I could fit the ends of my matrix band into it. Now, if your matrix band ends get stopped, you just need to turn your outer nut or the spindle, and that will back out the spindle and you can fit your ends into the diagonal slot vise. Now, if I were to put this in a patient, you can see here that I have a prep tooth. I'm going to slip the matrix band around like so, and my Tofflemire will be sticking straight through their cheek, which we don't want. That's not ideal. So we need to adjust this matrix band a little bit. So I'm going to turn it back so you can see the side of it again. You can see that this matrix band is going through both guide channels on the retainer head. So we have this guide channel here, this groove, and we have the outer guide channel right here. We want the matrix band to go through the first guide channel, and then we're going to either turn the matrix band to come out of the two guide channels through this side or this side. For the patient's lower left, it needs to come toward us, or upper right. So I'm going to hold my ends, because I haven't stabilized them yet. I'm going to hold my ends in the diagonal slot vise. I'm going to gently remove the matrix band from the outer guide channel and make it come through the two guide channels toward me. 1 millimeter of the matrix band ends should be sticking out of the guide channels. And I'm going to hold them in place, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my outer nut the opposite direction as before, and I'm going to tighten that matrix band in the guide channel. Now if I'm pulling on it, the matrix band, it's not coming out. It's steady and stable in there. So now that I have this matrix band and Tofflemire set up, I'm going to go ahead and place it around my tooth. Now this tooth may be screwed in tight enough that I'm going to need a little bit of help getting the matrix band in. And if that's the case, that's good. I want to also be able to demonstrate that. But it also may slip in very easily. So we will find out. I'm going to use my thumb to push the matrix band and make it more of a circle, just like our tooth is more of a circle. Here we go. And I'm going to squish it around like so. It's going to easily go into the prepared part, but as you can see, there's a little resistance between the contact of 18 and 19 here. So usually I'm going to be holding it, but for today I need both hands. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a wedge. Holding the occlusal part where I've already got the matrix band introduced between the teeth. I'm going to place the wedge on the buccal aspect of the difficult contact, pushing that wedge inside until the matrix band slips between the teeth, and then I'm going to pull that wedge back out. Now that I have my Tofflemire in between both contacts, I'm going to center the retainer head to the buccal side. It doesn't want to turn, of course. There we go. I'm going to turn it to the buccal side. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull my mesial and my distal aspects away from each other. And I'm going to pull these aspects away from each other. I'm sorry about the lighting changes here. Like so. And I'm going to slide it down into the sulcus area. So now you can see that matrix band is only 1 or 2 millimeters above the occlusal part of the prep, which is what we want. Now that it's in place, I'm going to hold my finger over the occlusal portion of the matrix band, and I'm going to turn my inner nut. And the inner nut is going to bring that diagonal slot vise backward and pull the loop through the guide channel. And that pulling the loop through the guide channel and backward makes the loop around the tooth smaller. So you can see now that my guide channel is no longer up near my diagonal slot vise is no longer up near the guide channels, but it's got some space between. That's because this inner nut moves the diagonal slot vise backwards, making this loop snug around the tooth. Now that we have our matrix band in, we can go ahead and place our wedge in the proper position. So I have my wedge here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place it on the lingual aspect, introduce it between the teeth, and we want it to close the box between the prepped tooth structure and the adjacent tooth. So it kind of looks like a square here. So this is the box that we're talking about. This box or square or rectangle right here is called the box, the inner proximal box. And we want to make sure that it is closed. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see that this area between the matrix band and the prep is closed and there are no gaps here. Okay, that is ideal. The last step for this matrix band is going to be ball burnishing the contact to make sure that we have an excellent contact when we place our material. So we're going to take our ball burnisher, we're going to take our smaller end, the small end, and we're going to burnish the matrix band, or push the matrix band against the adjacent tooth. We're going to be slightly buccal. We're not going to be dead center in the middle of that box, but our contact should be slightly buccal, and we're going to push that metal matrix band against the adjacent tooth. And now we have our matrix band complete.